if you ask your audience who is proud to go to a conference and say that I'm working as an SDR, if they're past 25, that's not because the job is not important. It's super crucial. Most of the management in my previous company started as BDRs. It's a hard job. And you learn a lot, but it's interfaced as a blip in your career ladder. I saw so many managers that are now managers that have started as SDRs or BDRs saying that if I had more prestige, if I had more money, if I had more career opportunities in that field, I wouldn't have left. So one thing is base salary, to restructure the role as an actual sales role, not as a paid internship. Then it's incentive structures. So from the things that you book, get a share of what revenue actually comes into the company. And then it's the prestige of the role. So giving business development a proper seat at the revenue table and looking at the actual career path in these roles to develop and feel proud to say that I'm a business developer. The narrative when it comes to investment has shifted from growth at all costs to profitability, scalability, and actually being on green numbers. Because money is not free anymore. Let's not kid ourselves. A great example why people don't like salespeople, man. Over-promising and under-delivering.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Dropped Playbook. And today we're going to take a peek into the playbook of my next guest, whose name is George Storm. So George has been in the sales game for more than 20 years, both in the B2B and B2C realms. He started in telecommunications, both retail and B2B, and then he transitioned into the events and training, and ultimately ended up in the startup scale-up ecosystem, where he's been in the SaaS world for the past 7 years. Why I want to have this conversation in particular is the fact that George went literally from the entry-level role, which is the SDR, and worked his way up to the VP of Sales Enablement, which allowed him to open up his consultancy that he's running today as the CEO of Break the Box, focusing on GTM strategies, sales, and sales enablement. So, George, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Stefan. Great intro. I have to say.
I'm always nervous. Like I've been running the other podcast as well for the past more than a year. I'm always nervous. Like, is this person gonna like the things that I'm gonna say? But
no, brilliant.
All right.
Very
awesome.
Very well put.
Perfect. We've been in touch for quite a while now, and why this conversation is actually happening in front of the cameras is because after one of our conversations, you had a LinkedIn post talking about a very specific topic that it turned out to be like a fiery topic that everybody wanted to kind of chime in and provide their feedback, which was about should the SDR BDR role have the opportunity to make more money and stay in the BDR role versus just being a stepping stone to becoming an account executive or maybe a manager, etc. So without further ado, I actually would like for us to kind of, I want to get your opinion on that, and then just dive a little bit deeper into the topic.
Yeah, brilliant. So we had the chat a few weeks back, which led into the post. So what I posted, what I said was that we should stop promoting SDRs to AEs. And what I meant by that is that we should start putting a bit more emphasis on the SDR role, putting a bit more respect on what these people do, because the role is to build a great top funnel for our pipelines in the organizations that we're in, that then leads into better conversion, better meetings for the AEs, etc., etc. And the way that the SDR role works today in all companies virtually I've been or interacted with is a very junior position, something that you do for a bit just to get into sales, right? It's sort of a vehicle more or a medium rather than a real role that you gather expertise in.
Yeah.
Now, having seen as a manager myself, as a VP sales before and head of enterprise, I've seen what huge difference one good BDR can make in the pipeline for new business. that is senior, that knows the industry, that knows the ICPs, that knows how to communicate the message and actually serve sales with actual hot leads, true sales qualified leads. And I still see that the main thing that we do with BDRs is they get a lot of pressure, very, very little, if any, respect at all, minimal training. And the whole purpose is just for them to be in the role for 3 to 6 months and then jump into an AE role. And given that we are at a place now that 37%, if I get my numbers correctly, of sales reps are reaching target, and the rest is failing. That tells us something about quality of pipeline. It tells us something about quality of opportunities. It tells us something about why our calendars are empty. And I think one of the problems is starting from the very top of the sales funnel, not the entire customer funnel, but the top of the sales funnel.
Okay, so many things to unpack there. Let me just take a little step back and introduce our audience, because it's not necessarily only sales folks listening to this. So a few like clarification definitions for the things that you've said. So the sales ecosystem in the SaaS or tech sales space basically looks like this. You've got the top of the funnel SDRs who are booking or supposed to be booking appointments by cold calling, cold emailing, reaching out to people and booking appointments, qualified, hopefully, appointments for their account executives, also known as sellers, all right? Just regular people doing sales, from which the AE, account executive, is supposed to close that deal after, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12 months, depending on how long it takes for an account to close. And then basically it is transitioned into customer success or account management, whatever you want to call it. So that's a very basic picture of what this ecosystem looks like. Now, what George is talking about here is basically the inefficiencies in that top of the funnel SDR part of the role and their relationship with account executives, et cetera, et cetera. And so one more thing that I want to define is, you mentioned SQL. So SQL is a sales qualified lead. So basically you don't want to have sales calls with random people, with people who are not in the departments of companies that you want to go after. So for example, if you're selling like an accounting software, you don't want to talk to HR. You want to talk to somebody from the accounting or finance, right? So that's basically the whole thing. So sorry for digressing here. I had to take a quick step back. Now, a few topics there that I really, really love, and one that I'm actually passionate about a lot is, you get into the role as a very junior person. Myself, I did that as well. And I know a lot of people who are doing it right now. And you can learn the skills. You got to be very, you have to have grit. You have to be you have to have tough skin, or you will fail because it's not actually that easy. You have to face rejection all day long. You don't really know what you are selling. You don't really understand. And I'm not saying necessarily you have to know every bit of the product and know the technicalities, especially with technical difficulties of products, but you have to at least know to an extent what you're selling. So what is your take on how do companies how does the system even need to evolve in order to set the SDRs for success?
Yeah, so I think it starts by reframing the role, right? So what is the role of a BDR? And I'm talking primarily about people that are doing outbound. There is since you went into the terminologies, and I'm sorry, I'm in SaaS for 8 years. My brain is working with abbreviations. So great catch there. So looking into how to reframe the role, and part of reframing the role is looking at quality of interactions, looking at qualitative dialogues. When we're investing the company's time and the prospect's time into a dialogue, we need to make sure that this is something that adds value and progresses the process to a degree, right? So we need to know who we're talking to, what to talk to them about, what is the minimum that they should know in order to be interested in sitting down in a sales meeting. So there is a lot of discussion in the industry about if BDRs are even necessary, if they should be reporting to marketing, if they should be replaced with automation. And personally, I think that it's a very crucial revenue role. It's a very crucial sales role. It builds a pipeline from the ground up with quality, and reframing into an actual position. Because let's be honest, this is more, we see it more as a sales internship, right? It's a paid internship, but still, we see it more as you will do these things. You will just be a meeting booker, like it's a small thing or an easy thing, and then you will move to a real sales role. So I think we need to shift mindsets and put a lot of respect on A, how hard it is, and B, that it has a lot of skill overlap, but it's not the same job. Getting somebody interested in something and moving them as it is the job of a salesperson is not the same thing. It's not the same volume. It's not the same skill set. It's not the same training. And it's not the same mentality. So I think there is a mentality shift that needs to happen, because we keep throwing basically, and this is not only a BDR problem, this is an industry problem. We keep throwing numbers at the issues. If we call more, if we email more, if we put more people on it, instead of looking at what quality do we produce in the roles that we occupy.
Yeah. I mean, too many things. So let's start with this. You mentioned reporting to marketing. So historically, marketing has been in charge of generating leads. Now we have SDRs who are also in charge of generating leads, just in another way, using something that has, again, historically been a sales skill. So how do we make sense of that? Who is actually, like you said something super important that I agree with, which is like it's a revenue role, not sales versus marketing role. But what's your take on that? Like, do you see the orgs having marketing over SDRs, BDRs generating leads, and like, does marketing have the necessary skill set to provide support to SDRs, BDRs?
And this is where you might get angry messages from your audience. I don't think that BDR should report to marketing. Actually, I think that marketing should be reporting into revenue. So I think that marketing as a function should be reporting under the CRO. The reason I'm saying that is because if you look at customer lifecycle from the beginning to end, from awareness to interaction to sales to renewals, etc., it is very much a revenue driven journey if that's the goal of the company. Now, the narrative of that the BDRs need to have is very much related to sales process. The only difference is that instead of selling a product, they're selling a meeting. So it's very much a sales role. It's a revenue driven role, and it has to do with qualification. It has to do with information, and it has to do with adding quality to the pipeline. So in my opinion, no, the role should not report under marketing. Rather the opposite. Marketing should be enhancing communication and assisting that funnel going forward.
Okay, I'm gonna return to that. I just want to nail one thing, which is when I started in my own SDR BDR journey, and by the way, I really use them interchangeably, like SDR, sales development rep, business development rep. It's like outbound sales. When I started my journey, I was like, hold on, I don't get it. Why are kids basically trying to like do this super important part of the job to like book meetings when, for example, in banking and insurance, like you got this, older folks who are not in their 20s, but in their 40s and 50s who are doing sales, which is something we would call like full cycle, right? They're generating leads as well as closing them. And I would be like, that I don't get it. That doesn't make sense. Like, is this really, how does this happen? Okay, I realized after a while, it's like Sure, there's a set of skills that you learn, a set of processes that you acquire, or rather, like start understanding and start doing, and then you get an output of X meetings per month. But still, it really like made me think. So like, what are your thoughts on the age of SDRs and sales?
Yeah, I think we're going back to the same mentality topic, because it's, if you look at older roles, because SaaS is a relatively new industry, right?
Yeah.
This setup, this hyper growth setup, with a lot of headcounts and continuous growth,
Yep.
is a relatively new setup in business. If you talked to people when I was in teleco a few years ago about what a business developer looks like, you're looking at a person in their mid 50s,
Exactly.
as a very senior person, having understanding of the industry, having understanding of the product, how to match it with potential buyers, how to develop business opportunities. And I think a big mistake that we make is we look at that correlation in the wrong way, because we see it as a volume business. We spend so much time, so the 6 months that the BDR on average spends on a role, or a year, they spend in learning the product, learning the narrative, learning the pitch, developing relationships with the AEs, developing relationships with management, building their brand on social. There are so many things that they need to be doing, right? And once they reach the fun thing is that just before they get promoted, like 2-3 months before they get promoted, they find that click, right? They find that rhythm, that they go in and they book 6, 7, 10 quality appointments per day. And then that translates into numbers, and their manager comes down and says, so now you get to drop what you're doing and start sitting in meetings instead. And then you have a sales team having to interact again from a good sales qualified flow to, again, going back to a junior person, going through the initial error, bad meetings, right? So a wrong decision maker, not enough interest, just booking a meeting to have a meeting set, right? And then we're looking at how much bad quality meetings we have, or how many opportunities slide or end up with no interest. And we sit down and wonder why the pipeline is not working, because we're not putting enough effort in the early stages. Because once that connection starts working, that person leaves the role.
Exactly, and that's what you and I spoke last time about, and realized, like, I agree with you to the extent of, it doesn't make sense for the BDR person to leave just as they actually started performing well. Whether that's that, sometimes it takes like 6, sometimes 12 months, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 18 months, doesn't matter. And that's kind of how long it takes for an SDR to get promoted, actually. And like, that doesn't make sense, because you're just leaving money on the table, and you're creating 2 new junior roles, basically, because you're putting a junior BDR in that person's place, and now you're promoting this BDR to a junior account executive, basically someone who doesn't have the skill set yet to become to be a very successful account executive. So that part doesn't really make sense. But what do we do about it? Like, and my point of view is, we should pay more money to BDRs, because at least from my experience, especially coming from Serbia, I used to work in an outsourcing business where we were like a bunch of SDRs doing SDR work for companies. Like, there were folks who were super cool with being SDRs, but they wanted to progress into the AE role to make more money. And who knows? I mean, that was also me. Like, I got a promotion to an account executive. Maybe I would have stayed as an SDR, just booking meetings, doing my stuff, and making like twice the amount of money that I was. So, what do you think?
I think there are several things there. I think, as it was evident by the discussion we had on LinkedIn in the last post, is that I saw so many managers saying that are now managers that have started as SDRs or BDRs, saying that if I had more prestige, if I had more money, if I had more career opportunities in that field, I wouldn't have left. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun because there are people that are good in communication. They have great communication skills. They get people excited to explore opportunities and to get them into dialogues. Like there are people that you see in conferences and stuff like that are connectors. They're good at putting people together, right? So one thing is base salary to restructure the role as an actual sales role, not as a paid internship. Then it's incentive structures. So starting to look at converted ARR, and I will do the translation now, our annual recurring revenue. And the conversion has to do with not booked meetings or sat meetings, but actual money in. So from the things that you book, that come from an SDR, they get a share of what revenue actually comes into the company. And then it's the prestige of the role. Putting a bit of respect and a bit of seniority, having a head of business development, for instance, sit in the revenue table instead of looking it as a team lead under sales, right? So giving business development as it should be, a proper seat at the revenue table and looking at the actual career path in these roles, to develop and feel proud to say that I'm a business developer. I create opportunities for the organization that I'm in. Not I'm a meeting booker. No one wants to go. If you ask your audience who is proud to go to a conference and say that I'm working as an SDR, if they're past 25. That's not because the job is not important. It's super crucial. And it's, in my opinion, I've done the job. My partner has done the job. Most of the management in my previous company started as BDRs. It's a hard job. And you learn a lot, but it's interfaced as a blip in your career ladder.
That's right. And it's even, I think, looked upon as a negative thing if you have, I don't know, like 2 years, 3 years, like several roles as an SDR. Like, oh, what's wrong with BDR? What's wrong with you? Why aren't you progressing and similar? But I'm curious, have you, so in your consultancy work and, you know, the projects that you're running, have you actually done something in this sense of like restructuring some companies, organizations, sales orgs or revenue orgs in order to accommodate this different type of sales role or business development role?
Yes. So one of the things that we do at Bray the Box is to do revenue reviews, right? So we're looking at the entire customer lifecycle, based on the different departments and how the process works. And one of the things that we advise and implement quite often is looking at that very beginning of the conversion stages, right? From meeting booked to held to opportunity. I'm talking CRM stages now. I hope people can follow along. And put a lot of emphasis in fleshing out these teams. We also help with hiring. We also help with training in these roles. So putting a proper business development team in collaboration with marketing and go-to-market and ICPs to really make a shift in quality when it comes to pipeline.
That makes sense. Although it doesn't sound like exactly what we were talking about earlier, meaning like making these significant changes. And I'm not taking that for like you not doing a good job. It's just going to show that it's extremely hard to make these changes.
Yes.
So in order to, like, for the whole industry, in order to make at least one step towards this type of looking at the whole process, what do you think would be the best one step that organizations can take?
I think restructuring the role and restructuring the team structure is where we start. And this is, by the way, what I was talking about before. This is what we're implementing. So looking at how the team structure works, looking at business development as an equal seat on the table with sales, with customer success, with marketing under revenue, looking at it as a crucial stage in the customer's journey, right? So throwing away the job description as is my suggestion. Just throw away the template that we found somewhere of what a BDR does. Throw that away. Look at it as a revenue role based on under business development. Restructuring the base salary, restructuring the prestige of the role, restructuring the incentive structure, and investing quite a lot of time in how this role correlates to the next stages of the process. How does that role communicate with sales? Because for me, having that team being collaborating with sales but separate from, it's not a role under the sales department. It's a department. It's a team that delivers or collaborates with sales, in my opinion, with its own objectives and its own initiatives and its own training. Because it's not the same. In my view, it's not the same skills. Yeah. They're overlapping, but it's not the same skills.
All right.
But primarily, it's a mentality shift. We need to stop looking at BDRs as either easy or junior. It's the hardest. Yeah. It's the hardest link of the chain, and it's the most undertrained, the most underappreciated, and it's the least prestige in the whole revenue, if not company.
Okay, so let's try to be practical about this. So, for example, let's say we create a change like this, all right, in an org, doesn't matter. So currently SDRs are making, let's say, 50, 60K base. Account executives are making, let's say, 80 to 100 plus another 80 or 100 OT, doesn't matter. So where does this new role land in that spectrum of base salary between $50,000 and $100,000, for example, a year in the States? How would that land? Like, where do we, like, what do we benchmark it with? What's the actual value of that job? How do we do that?
Yeah, and since we recently created a plan like that as a business plan on how to reform the revenue organization, I can tell you exactly. So, in my opinion, this role should be on equal ground with the AEs. And because I've been questioned a lot online too, but how would you make the math work? Yeah. I think we're hiring too many AEs, or we're promoting too many AEs. In my opinion, a proper business plan has to do with quality per role, or ARR per FTE, right? Yeah. So looking at compensating enough for the person to gain seniority and experience in the role for base and on target earnings. And we don't need to promote unless the current sales team, or promote or hire unless the sales team are all on quota consistently. Yeah. So for me, the only reason to throw more bodies on the sales fire is when your sales team can't meet the requirement for new sessions. If you have more meetings than you have people, this is the time to or maybe a few months before. But when you start having more demand than you have salespeople, this is where you need to promote. This is where you need to hire. We saw a hiring spree 2 years ago, which most of these people got unfortunately fired now, because the logic in management is more salespeople means more money. And it doesn't work like that. Exactly. So I think there is a room in the same budget as it is forecasted now to compensate these roles more in order to gain more traction and more quality in your pipeline, and pause new promotions or new sales recruitment until you have enough qualitative pipe to hold you with 2-3 quarters forward. Yeah. So I think with the same amount, I'm not advocating that, okay, keep hiring sales reps and compensate BDRs more. I'm advocating the opposite. So until the pipeline is qualitative enough, pause the sales hiring spree and instead put a lot more investment in the early stages of the pipeline.
Got it. One thing that crossed my mind right now is something we haven't spoken about so far, which is the pressure coming from VCs, because that's usually where, when I say VCs, I'm talking about investors, venture capital investors. So they are the ones usually who are like, all right, here's the TAM, total accessible market. With this amount of reps, you did X. We're gonna add this amount of reps. You're gonna do Y. However, it most often doesn't work like that. But that is super hard to communicate back to VCs. So where does this new model fit into this VC fueled world? Obviously, we're seeing changes because the bubble has burst and like everybody's got fired. So something will change definitely, but how does this model fit into the VC backed world?
Yeah, I will answer this in two steps. So I spoke to a lot of VCs, a lot of investors when we were in Dublin for SaaS Talk, and a lot of them have been on stage, and the narrative has shifted dramatically. First of all, the narrative when it comes to investment has shifted from growth at all costs to profitability, scalability, and actually being on green numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because money is not free anymore. Let's not kid ourselves. It was a boom during COVID, especially for SaaS businesses. Anything that had cloud or SaaS slapped on it got a huge valuation, right? So evaluations and internal growth or growth and hiring at all costs is not the name of the game anymore. It's quite obvious. Investors are looking, and the market is looking at more on profitability, scalability, and efficiency of operations. And efficiency of operations is exactly what we were on before. Getting qualitative results, more ARR per head, more ARR per hire, more quality per hire. The motto nowadays from the VCs is do more with less. And that fits right into that narrative. But if you have a situation where you're still running on the previous model and you need to justify it as a CRO or as a founder, or as a CEO, I think that we should push a lot more and be a lot more confident in our go-to-market strategy and talk about results instead of. So if you're pushed in a boardroom meeting because of growth numbers, you can contrast and say, so look, if we raise our conversion by 10-20% by putting some quality injections into the early stages of the funnel, we need less marketing spend because we can convert more. We have a lot more predictable revenue, which makes the investment a lot less risky. We have a lot more scalability because we know that once we put FTEs into sales, we have quality, we have fuel for them to ramp up within 6 to 7 or 4 to 6 months, instead of throwing a junior person out there with no funnel and it takes 6 to 12 to 14 months, which is also why a lot of people go fired.
Yep.
So I think it's a good intersection of where the market is going and where the investment environment is going. That is a lot more pragmatic. It's a lot more sober, I think. And suggestions like this, I think, will be a lot easier to justify or to argue for.
The insights that you got from SaaS Talk is actually something I also wanted to ask you about. And you started that part with just like, what are the VCs doing? And that's also something I've been hearing as well, although I haven't been to Dublin, but which is going back to profitability, going back, like, VCs have been riding this wave of like, let's throw money at shit and like hope it sticks. What got stuck, people got really rich, but that time is over. The bubble has really burst.
Yeah.
And so evaluations are getting literally slashed in like 100x. And
it's going to get worse.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And
for evaluations, it's going to get worse.
It's a totally another conversation. But I am glad to see VCs really like thinking, how do I make my money more efficient? And I just had a conversation with a dear friend of mine. He's working for a VC studio right now, or sorry, VC company right now, VC fund, and they've shifted their strategies. And he said that um, their differentiator is the fact that they have operators that can actually help companies perform better, which isn't usual for VC companies. They usually like, here's the money, I want to see, triple, double, over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Whereas, this like, okay, I'm going to make my money be more efficient and actually get a less riskier investment. So what are some other insights that you've gotten from the either like companies that you've spoken with at the conference or other investors? Like what would be your highlights?
Yeah, there is a few, but before I go into that, I want to just mention one thing that was a bit surprising compared to other years. We are, and this is a shameless plug to what we do, but I think it's fair. So we do consultancy. We help revenue organizations and operations for B2B SaaS, right? And usually when we go to events, what happens is most of our interest for meetings or for conversations comes from revenue and sales departments, right? Or from founders. This time around, the main interest was actually from investors, either private equity investors or VC funds, going into dialogues because they want to talk to people that know the industry really well, that have been there before, not necessarily myself now, but as a general sentiment. Basically exactly what you said, getting hands-on in and more operational into how to help these companies be efficient, how to ensure that the funds that they invest actually get ROI in a reasonable amount of time. Because it was for very long at SaaS look, red numbers are a sign of growth, right? That's what we used to say for several years. You need to report. If you're not reporting red numbers, you're not growing fast enough.
Yeah.
That was the narrative for 4 or 5 plus years. And that is shifting a lot. And I will parlay that into your second questions and say that very close to that narrative, the rest of the insights were a lot, it was a lot less fluffy of a conference. This one. It was a lot more focused on numbers, talking about, as I said, ARR per FTE, talking about very clear ICPs, ideal customer profile, that is. And I'm clarifying that for 2 reasons, Stefan. 1, because you did the glossary in the top of this session. And 2, because in my experience is that most companies don't know what an ICP is. We asked around a lot, and it's either we got a range of company size, or I actually got a few answers of I don't know what that is, and that's CROs. It's not BDRs, by the way. There is
hold on. Did you just say?
Go ahead.
Did you say CROs at the conference? Some of them, like and
Chief
Revenue Officer.
Yes.
All right,
Chief Revenue Officer and founders of companies looking for investments, and you ask them, or they get asked by investors, because we've been in roundtables and sort of side chats. How conferences work. It's like, I'm not sure what it is. I need to look it up. And we're talking about companies that are 2 years in. And we're asking sales, or we're asking founders, not only me, but investors or other people there, to get a clear ICP, who are we, who is this product for? Who are you targeting? And there were 3 answers that surprised me a lot, 3 clusters of answers.
All right.
One is, and I sort of understand, is that this product is applicable for everyone. So anyone can use it.
Okay.
Anyone can use it doesn't mean that it's the ideal fit.
That's right.
Right? Then it was a range of companies, a range of employee headcount, which actually answers is, where do you make more money, not where your customers get more value from your product.
I see.
And then there was a cluster that didn't know what the abbreviation meant, which is alarming in itself. But
Okay, no. I mean, it's fine. For example, I used to get sales leaders because I used to sell to sales leaders who didn't know what an SDR was, and to me that was weird. But I just kind of took it for like face value. It is what it is, and so I can understand that somebody hasn't heard about the abbreviation. Like it stands for, by the way, for the audience, ideal customer profile, and basically means your ideal type of account company and ideal type of person who you are selling to, and so I can understand that they don't understand the abbreviation. However, not understanding who their ICP is, I can see that being a huge struggle for a lot of companies. And one more thing, I'm going to let you speak. Sorry about that. Is I've seen this, like we in this SaaS space and B2B tech space, we've had to really adjust to this abbreviation filled environment, and like we had to learn what ICP is and everything else. However, more traditional industries, like service businesses, SMBs, they usually don't really know who their ideal customer is, and that is actually like a huge opportunity for people like potentially you and I, but also a huge opportunity to learn for a lot of people and to expand the industry and expand like the abbreviation ecosystem.
But to be honest, I am on the advisory space, but I would never recommend anyone to hire Break the Box in order to understand terminology or things that are. Look, there is so much information out there, Stefan. If you look at LinkedIn, if you look at Gartner that was on stage, had a really good study. I want to touch on that before we close. If you look at content creators on the SaaS space, podcasts like yours, it's filled with information.
Yep.
All we need to do is to be curious and interested enough to look at sombering sort of concrete numbers and business cases, right? That was the main sentiment that I left from the conference, that the industry is finally reaching a point of maturity, I would say, because it's still a new industry. I've been in there for 8 years, but I'm almost 40 now. I'm an old dude comparatively to the average age, right? But the industry is maturing. The fund allocation is maturing, and although it's super fun to work with modern concepts and agile development and growth hacking and all of these fun things that we sort of revolutionized with SaaS, there is a lot of wisdom and knowledge. When I worked on telco, for instance, or when I worked for larger enterprise companies before, they might not call it ICP, but they know very well what the addressable market is, what message to put in front of them, and who they are. Very, very targeted, because they are used in a high pressure environment from their boards, right? From how this ecosystem works, and because the industry as a whole was a bit immature, we have these symptoms. It's not strange, but it is the main takeaway that I have, which also ties into the BDR discussion, is that the whole ecosystem is maturing. The customers are more informed. They don't just buy nice to haves anymore because, hey, it's online and it's automated, or it has AI, which is the second wave now of buzzwords. But looking at actual value, looking at actual business cases, looking at return on investment, looking at adoption, looking at what do we get for each person we hire, for instance, or what do we get for each system we implement, how we're going to implement, who's going to help us out. All of these things are questions that were sort of brushed off before because the space used to be super fluffy. Now it seems that we have a sort of sobering view. It's like a morning after view after being hungover. So this is... I think it's tougher if you're not prepared for it. But I think it will be a lot more sustainable. It will be a lot more mature, a lot more profitable for the people that do invest in knowledge, that do invest in strategy, and sort of embrace that change. I think there is huge opportunity instead of looking at how bad the market is and how expensive money is and how evaluations are slashed. I think there is huge opportunity. This is my main takeaway. But there is huge opportunity for people that embrace numbers and embrace strategy.
Speaking of numbers and strategy, both you and I mean, we're currently in this B2B tech space. However, again, going back to traditional companies, how would you say, because there's a lot of listeners who just run regular businesses, everyday businesses that are not in the tech space. So what would you say, how would someone like that translate what we've been discussing for the past 30, 40 minutes into their own business? Let's say, I don't know, usual B2B business, lawn mowing business, I don't know, roofing companies, solar panels. I mean, how do regular companies use what we know in the B2B tech space?
Yeah, so one example when we talk about ICPs, right? So one example when it comes to embracing numbers is understanding where the economy is, understanding where the market is, and understanding who are the people that are the most fit to buy from you. So understanding your addressable market, understanding your customers. And for traditional businesses and sales and SaaS businesses, I would say that the first step into understanding that market is going internally. Ask your existing customers why they bought from you. Ask what they saw in your offer. Even if either you are a company with 200 FTEs in SaaS or a 6 people roofing company, ask your existing contracts, why did they buy from you? What did they see in your offering, in your delivery? And take that and make it into your external communication. This is why people want to work with us. This is what problems they face. This is how we solve it for them. And this is the understanding of the market that we have. So instead of, for instance, complaining about how rough the market is understanding and why the market is rough right now, why purchasers are more skeptical, and how you can help them mitigate that risk by saying, so this is, I understand that the investments are hard right now, either it is solar panels or software. Investments are hard right now. You need to go with the person that has a solution that you do need, that understands the situation that you're in and can guide you through it. So I don't think that yes, the technicalities in the abbreviation stage, but the message still remains. Knowing your market, knowing your customers, and knowing what you're trying to communicate and focusing on that message. Because in all companies, including what I do, including what I did before, there is always a lot of clutter in our messaging. We're always very fluffy. Yep. In our communication. So that's my 2 cents. Understand, and if you don't have, and I'm sorry for the marketers and the marketing agencies out there, I would not recommend that you should spend huge budgets in doing market research. I would suggest that either use your customer success teams if you're a SaaS company, or call your customers yourself if you're a smaller business and ask them questions. Ask them why they bought and get to know them, really know them. And that is going to be a lot more valuable than any marketing agency or any market research you do.
Exactly. I would comment, which is going to take us on another tangent, but definitely I think that there are so many things that you can do as a founder or as a whatever stage you are in, you can already do yourself really quickly and easily to get the answers that you need. And most often your customers already have all the answers that you need. You don't know, all right, we're trying to target a new persona. Sure, let's just ask those couple of existing customers why they initially bought from us. What is their use case? Or I don't know, like we're revamping the copy on the website on the hero page. Okay, so let's just do a survey of our existing customers, whatever. It's like it's super simple, but somehow very rarely people do this. So and that's just weird. I guess like anything else, people forget. People just forget to zoom out, forget to do like I don't know, climb on a chair and just see the world from a meter above what they were looking for in the beginning. So there are two things that I want to ask you, and I want to remind you about the Gartner study.
Yes.
So one thing is you were at a conference, and I know that a lot of people struggle with this. How much time are you actually spending like personalizing your message and your ask for that meeting at the conference? What's the level of effort that you're putting into crafting those messages?
The answer will be twofold now. I will again piss some people off with this. I am a proponent of no personalization. I don't think that mentioning the person's role or company they've been in, or where they live, what sports team they support, or whatever else irrelevant stuff is super relevant. Again, my effort comes from knowing who I want to talk to. Mm-hmm. Because then I know that whoever I talk to within that group, my message is and my competence is relevant to them. So most of my messages, and if people from that attended Dublin is in your audience, they can testify to that. Most of what I said is, I'm going to be there from Tuesday to Thursday, or from Monday to Wednesday, whatever it was. Let's have a chat. That was the majority of the messages. And usually, even online, I would get the question. So, sure, I'm going to be there. What do you guys do? I will say briefly what I do, and then book time. But the point is not, again, I'm not contacting people to sell to them on a conference. I'm contacting people because I know that my competence is relevant, that I can learn from what they do, and I can share experience from the 20 years that I have in 22 in sales and 8 in SaaS. That is how I know the dialogue will be relevant, right? And it's the same with customer profiles if you're selling software. I did preparation for events as a senior account as well, or as a BDR when I sold software. I did exactly the same. I'm going to be there. What I do is on my profile, to be transparent. Mm-hmm. If they're going to check what you do anyway, you don't need to pitch them.
Yeah.
And they will look at your LinkedIn profile and see if the service or your experience is relevant, and accept or decline on their own volition.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I actually didn't ask one question, but we'll save that for another session, which is like, where does marketing fit into all of this? You mentioned it. It was under, you would love for it to be under revenue. But like that's we need 20 more minutes at least for that at least. So I'm not going to get into that. I do want to remind you of the Gartner story. I don't know what's study.
Yes. And surprisingly, this ties into the discussion as well. Awesome. Gartner got on stage on the last day of the conference, and they said a lot of interesting things, but one thing stood out to me, that there is a huge percentage of buyers that they polled which regret their buying decisions.
Nice.
The amount is I think they talked about 60% of buyers. So 3 out of 5 people buy software from from all of us that are in the B2B SaaS business. 3 out of 5 people regret their buying decision. And yet what we're focusing on is sales training, marketing, and how to get more logos in. And there is a ticking time bomb in all of these companies' foundation, which is their customers. 3 out of 5 of their customers have already regretted buying, which means that they are a churn waiting to happen. So again, quality when it comes to the stages of the customer journey is super important, and it starts from the first dialogues that the BDRs have, and this is definitely another session, but it continues with customer success, with meeting expectations.
Yes.
Because we were so obsessed with growth that 3 out of 5, if you sit on that number for a moment and understand that 60% of your customer base is unhappy with their purchase, they're considering, they have already regretted their purchase. That speaks volumes on what amount of risk there is in all of these companies in their install base, what risk there is for churn, how poorly success has been managed, or the customer journey has been managed throughout the process, and also a great example why people don't like salespeople, man. Over promising and under delivering. So this is things that, again, before hiring salespeople, making sure that we contact the right people as we started, that we treat them correctly, that we know enough about them, and we make sure that they get their money back.
Yeah, age-old story. It's definitely another session. I think we should have one. I'm even thinking about like dividing this one into two. But
yes.
All right. So final question: where do people find you, and why do they contact you?
So people can find me on LinkedIn. That's where that's my main platform. So George Storm. If you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll find me. You'll find the Break the Box page there as well, as long as a lot of these takes that we went through today on there. And what I mainly do, what we do at Break the Box is advisory for revenue and operations for B2B SaaS. And we work both with founders and VC firms on both acceleration and strategy. Personally, I've spent most of my time in enterprise sales, so my expertise comes primarily from the sales, upstream sales.
Yep.
So I can personally assist in that too, if companies are looking to break into the enterprise market.
Perfect.
But primarily, if you want to chat revenue or business strategy, or if you have angry marketers in your audience that want to debate if sales should report to revenue or to the CRO or not, hit me up.
All right, that sounded like a proper threat. So it can't be boring. No,
promise.
No. That's a topic very dear to me as well, and I love talking about it. I actually think that I agree with you, although I would really depolarize revenue from sales. I would just call it revenue, and then we would have sales and marketing reporting to it, without favoring one over the other. But
no,
totally new topic. We'll save it for another time. George, I really appreciate you. This was super engaging and super awesome. I hope our audience will feel the same. And until next time, take care, man, and I'll see you around.
Thank you very much.